This is my guide to film metalanguage and specifically shot types. The learning intention for this is for you to be able to use these phrases in your own sentences to make coherent references to a film as text in an essay. So what you need to do with this video is basically rule up 3 columns. The left-hand column, you're just going to write the name of the shot so that you can keep track of what it's called. In the middle, you can either draw a picture, if I would prefer, or just write a description of what you typically see in this shot. And in the third column, this is the hardest part. You need to explain what typically this shot communicates to the audience. So for example, just a basic one, a low angle shot typically is used to show that the person being filmed is powerful over someone else, and then a high angle shot does the opposite, so it shows weakness. Obviously a good director can use these shots in different ways to communicate different things, but there is also like a rough standard film understanding for each shot type that is roughly coherent to link to each shot type. Alright, so these are your 3 basic shot types. So roughly 90% of all shots in a film will be these shots, so just sort of get used to them. The first one is a close-up. So the first shot type is a close-up. Here we have this example is a close-up of a face, but you could close up on anything, an item, a shoe, a foot, a limb, any part of the human body, or anything in particular. And something to keep in mind for a film, the amount of times you get a close-up of something is a pretty good indication that that might be a motif or something symbolic or something really important to the film. Second most common is a medium or a mid shot. Typically this is a human person from the waist up, so the focus is, of course, you can see their uniform, you can see their facial expression and their body language, which is something that would be lost if this photo was a close-up only. Third standard shot is a long shot. So for this here, it gives you a bit of perspective, it gives you the background, and it also gives you typically the main character or a main proponent or part of the film. Those are your 3 basic shots, and there's also 3 very basic angles. Firstly, low angle shot, so what you might call a worm's eye view or from below. People typically find this quite an unflattering shot because it could give you double chins or something like that, but it shows the people in the picture are powerful as shown here in these images. The somewhat standard is the eye level shot, so this is just where you look eye to eye with the main character or the person or the item pictured in the shot. High angle shot might be a bird's eye view. It's different to an aerial shot, obviously, due to the scope. An aerial shot is much further away, whereas a high angle shot is quite close on the subject typically. And this one's very rare and weird, but it's called a Dutch tilt, which is basically where the camera is tilted to a diagonal direction, and the effect of this is up for you to decide, as you can look at this example. So there's the basic shots and angles. These are what I would call specialist shots that happen less frequently but communicate and have certain effects that you'll want to be considering. So the extreme close-up or macro shot. So the extreme close-up or macro shot gives you a very finely detailed image of whatever is taking place on camera, and it can be used for a range of effects. Usually it's quite disconcerting and really draws your eye to a specific item on the screen. The establishing shot just does what it says on the tin. It tells you where people are or where they're supposed to be. Obviously, this example of from Seinfeld, the majority of the show isn't actually filmed inside this restaurant, but it's rather stock footage. So the establishing shot in this case is just setting up the illusion of being in that place. An aerial shot is usually used in big budget blockbuster movies. It gives a shot sort of an overview of where you are in the film, sets you up more than just an establishing shot, which is usually interior exterior shots. An aerial shot includes both of those, so you might have buildings, a lot of CGI, castles, houses, homes, tunnels in this case, and it just gives you a sense of scale. Over the shoulder shot is just used when 2 people are conversing, so you see a person's shoulder and perhaps the side of their head and the person talking to them, and then you get the reverse shot, which is the same but mirrored. So you see then the person listening's shoulder and perhaps their head and the person talking. And this introduces a rule that they call break the line, so you always have to be going from the same shoulder, otherwise it gets a bit disconcerting if you suddenly change shoulders and the viewer finds it quite confusing. A point of view shot is just literally from the point of view of the person, so you might see their hands or their legs, or you might look down and see their knees pumping as they run, or them riding a bike, or a really famous one is, of course, driving a car. Usually you get point of view shots of that. It's rather rare, but a picture-in-picture shot is where you have different video images transposed on top of each other. I've grouped all these shots together. These are movement shots. So if you see the camera moving, you usually just refer to that as a pan shot, because to pan means to go from left to right, but these are other specific types of movement shots beyond just the basic verb to pan. So a tracking shot follows along with the action, usually a car, a bike, a person running or skateboarding, and it follows along with the motion of the movement taking place. An arc shot is even more rare than that. The specific example here is from The Matrix, but an arc shot goes in a semicircle around the subject of the shot. We used to call these crane shots, but now you can do the same effect with a drone, and it's just basically, it's similar to an aerial shot, but it moves. So in the picture on the left, we follow the man down the street of his Western film rather, and we see him moving through the town, perhaps interspersed with, windows shutting or something to show the way that he is evil or a scary person. Drone shots are a little bit less steady, but they give the same sort of result of movement through space, and also an aerial shot. A zoom shot is just when, without editing being used, a camera is used to focus in on something. So we move usually from a long shot to a mid shot, or from a mid shot to a close-up. Fisheye lens is a particular lens that gives the effect you can see on screen. It just sort of distorts or warps the outside of the image so it looks something like a fishbowl. And the last shot is something I've called a pass-through shot, which is basically where you use CGI to pass through things that you shouldn't possibly or usually be able to do, such as a window or wall, or in the case of this clip, an engine. So using the meta language you've just uncovered, or the shot type names, we're going to do 3 different kinds of essay responses. So a sentence simply about one still shot from a film, a sentence about a sequence from a film, and also a sentence that gives a summary of the director's method throughout the entire film. All of these are equally viable in a film text response essay, but having a range of each of these based on different key themes or different key shots from the film will really help you to complete an essay on this topic. So the basic sentence we've got here is, for example, Tim Burton uses a close-up, low-angle shot of Edward Scissorhands to communicate to the audience that he is scarred on his face and he is very afraid and unsure of his new surrounding. In regards to a sequence or a section of a film, you use the same sort of language, but you're just going to use multiple shot types, and you're going to try and explain how they communicate something in particular. So for example, Tim Burton uses a range of 2 shots, close-ups and tracking shots when Edward first arrives in the suburb to show that Peg is being kind to him and that he is very excited by everything he sees. This influences the audience to realise how naive he is and how unaware he is of the entire world outside of where he lives. So this is a sentence to talk about the director's style as a whole across the entire film. So you might say something like, Burton uses a lot of point of view shots from Edward's perspective to ensure that the audience understands that they are meant to empathise with Edward rather than the other members of the town.